Good evening. Here it is, the 18th day of March 2024 in the Gregorian calendar. I feel the need to come and speak to the world a little bit every day. Time is moving so fast. Um, and so every day we have the opportunity to speak truth, to be a light. We must take advantage of that. On yesterday, well, actually, the early wee hours of the morning, um, on this 24-hour circle, I came and I gave my check in about my goals and what I wanted to accomplish. I did do, I made some efforts and they were good ones. Today I worked on my Uniform Commercial Claim 1, my UCC 1, that it is a trust. That is a trust. People don't know that, but it allows me to put a claim on, use one part, one, like I should say my estate, to put a claim on the trade name. Because right now, the claims on my assets and on my life are unrebutted on the record. And many people are talking about the state that we're in right now and feeling uneasy about things. Some are speaking of the goodness of the times that are coming, and there is definitely the evidence to know that there are good times coming with the alignment of the stars and the different eclipses, and the eclipses going over the cities that were named Salem after, of course, they studied the stars, they named the cities, right? So it's much more technology, much more information available than what the masses are made aware of. But for those of us um, who are made aware of what's happening, it's our responsibility to share what's going on. And also, for me, it's a responsibility to speak to those who are in power as it relates to resources, right? There's something that is called social welfare. These are things, these are systems that can only be provided by a government agency, or I should say, like a services corporation, right? So let's say, I think I talked about this before, but let's say some people in the community wanted a better roads and we didn't have large government systems to come and make the roads better, then it would be rather difficult for us to have a civilized way of being. So these are things that we want to acknowledge that are important, our need for government services. But then there are things that are not to be taken care of by the government. It's supposed to be decided by the people. Part of that is the first line of defense is from the people. So our government, quote unquote, the government going to preventively start wars with other people in other lands in the name of defense of this land, that is not a good way to spend energy, right? So, why do I think of this now? Because I know that it is women, that it is men who come together to make decisions, to make things happen. Systems don't make things happen. All right. The people fuel the systems. So it's so important that we have right thinking about what's happening. I was listening to Tom Bilyeu. I didn't listen to the whole broadcast, but the title of this particular one. Let's say we're talking about with Pat Bett is his name. They were talking about what's happening with the economy in the state that it's in. Tom Bilyeu. I wish I could find it. Anyway, we have to not look at the system as if we can just fix the way we've been doing it over the last hundreds of years, with it being a debt-based economy. Since 1933, particularly taking the funds off of the gold standard. So why does this matter? Because the system as we know it is not sustainable. And there are those who are in control of assets, in control of resources, who sit around and consider trying to make something that is broken be fixed. And it cannot be fixed, it must be transformed. You can't just fix the way it's been. We must transform it into what is right. And how do we know it's not right? Well, we know it's not right because it's not true. It's not the truth. There might be legal facts, but that's not the same thing as what is true. So when it comes to, let's just start something real simple. Let's just start at our calendar. The beginning of the month starts with the new moon. All right? Because these are things that we can agree upon, we can see in nature to be so. And even when it comes to our religious practices, we can look at nature and how nature functions and get a little clue about, is my religious practice healthy? Is my religious practice good? See, religion came after mankind, after man. Religion is the corporate religion, the 501c3s, the corporate religion that have all been claimed to be under the Vatican, under the Pope, right? These are relatively new systems. And so we don't have time to try to convince someone that our God is better than their God. And so that's why I'm here too, to talk about some of the things that are true about the spirit. And historically, these things, you can look it up to see what your ancestors did. Yes, your ancestors who created the pyramids, what did they know? What did they know to be true? Because our beliefs will keep us separate. Because our beliefs cannot be verified. But what is true can be verified. Okay? Where I stay, not far from the capital of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., that 10-mile square radius that has a jurisdiction all over the different states, the several states, right? The streets look a mess. The buildings have holes in very interesting places. Clearly, as of right now today, there's some plan in the works that is not being televised, it's not being spoken on. Now, what I know, that if there's an opportunity for us to think, breathe, and do whatever path we're on, we can make it be a right path. But I see the evidence that there's something in the makings that might not be so great. So, first of all, I have to say, well, what can I do to make the world better? I know we're based in a, false matrix as it relates to women like me, not having made our claims in commerce in a way that's respected. There are people who made claims with Mama Rare Bird. Now, um, I'm not 100% sure what the justification is. What is the justification on the side of those who are clearly controlling things, right? Where those who made that declaration with Mama Rare Bird, um, why it is that it's not being responded to publicly. Now, one thing I'm going to say, it is necessary. It is necessary for the Pope. It is necessary for the Vatican to specifically respond to the women at the United States of North America who are making claim to our land. It is part of our culture and part of our heritage where our word is respected first off, first away. So if it is in part because you consider yourself dead at sea, underneath the sea, as I've seen some letters to have been signed, I invite you to rise and stand and walk in truth and be an example in that way to discuss the shift that is here. The shift that is here. It will be 1 year since the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. And so I do know a little bit about the Catholic faith, where one is to confess their sins. But with the confession of sins, it also comes repentance, which is different, which is one turning their behavior to what is right. So I remember when I was working with fifth graders, and it's something how open they are to learning how to resolve conflicts. And even in the Heliobibliothèque, the King James version of the Bible, it talks about coming to God, good, righteousness, like a child. And so I take pleasure in being able to use this example of me teaching children how to be more compassionate and how to recognize that they did something that wasn't in the best interest of another and apologizing and correcting their behavior. So here's how it looks: I apologize for whatever it was that they did wrong. And then they say, do you accept my apology? And then the other person, usually because children are so forgiving and they don't have the need or to be pretentious, they don't have these egos to protect, they don't have shells of shame to hide in, or tunnels to go in, or other planets to go to, or other realms, or whatever have you to run and hide. Okay, they accept an apology, and then like 10 minutes later they're playing again, and they're getting along with each other, and usually not repeating the same mistakes over and over and over. So it is in that way that we need to be like children, that we can see historically when economies are in the state that this economy is in now, that there have been wars and that sort of thing, but we cannot tolerate another war. We've been told by very powerful leaders, to have a war, just saying, I'll just throw up my hands, we'll just, you know, end this cycle of humanity on this planet. That's what we'll do. No, that's not acceptable. And whoever has been at the helm, and I don't say this in a way to condemn, I say it in a way to empower. But whoever has been at the realm must not um, fault and blame those who have been sheepishly following along with the program that has been given them. Whoever has been at the realm must uh, look in the mirror, look amongst their colleagues and their loved ones, and say, what opportunity do we have to right this ship? Because the way it is right now is a poor reflection on our legacy. Yes. And so, um, from my standpoint, I know that there are declarations, there are trusts that need to go on the record. There are some processes that I have started, and I've come to the conclusion, oh, that process of Rick Warto with a large default judgment or whatever have you, that just maintains people in the same position who don't know what to do, who are unclear on what is right, that doesn't help anything. So I just want to speak on that. Um, what needs to happen is there is a stored value that is the debt, the U.S. economy debt, and it keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. It, if at the level of when people come into the world, we start using self insurance or other means of fueling the economy, the currency, versus doing so with an unstable instrument, we can live off of the wealth that is here. We can take the credits that are accurately calculated. They're accurately calculated, but in a system that is built on something that is worthy of being called fiat, right? But I won't say. I would prefer to say that this interest that is so coveted by others who don't have a natural security interest in another's life, right? This system does have to change. And it's not a reset by destroying the allanges, destroying the property, destroying the estate of another. That is not justice. And to blame the victims is not justice. And to miss the opportunity to shift into righteousness with courage and fearlessness is not justice. So, the message from the Vatican I saw today, it warmed my heart when that particular, I'm not sure of the title of the good man who brought it to the world's attention, that sustaining the fighting and the war in Palestine, between Palestine and Israel, is not a good idea, right? He told the truth when he said it's not a good idea. And he said that peace without justice is not sustainable. Peace without justice is not sustainable. Is not that a universal message that must be spoken over and over and over? So, what justice might look like is this: we know that all people were born with God given rights. So, when we have systems and processes that do not honor people's God given rights, we have to we have to find a way to repent from that. Repent from that. So if you know that you go into a program that you particularly, I speak with the health sciences, about 22% or so, last I checked, of the economy is in healthcare. And there are people who use their talents and abilities running experiments and programs that also are a genocide on people. So now, if you didn't have a license or a degree or something like that to go with the behavior, people would call it what it is. All right. And these systemic, these systemic activities, they need to end. So in what was it, 1972, was that the end of Tuskegee, the Tuskegee study? But now there are things that are way worse than Tuskegee that are in place for multiple reasons. But we're in the age of enlightenment. We're awakening to the fact that it is our miseducation that others have profited off of, but they're not even profiting anymore off of it. They want their private papers back, and it's built in insurance, it's built in some things that are actually not real. It's only because we accept these concepts do things happen. And those who um, faithfully who faithfully go to church and spend time with their friends and their loved ones, they really are the remnant of people who don't know just how harmful it is to give your energy to a system. When I say give your energy, I mean your promises to pay tithe money and tax money. It's it's harmful to give that into a system that perpetuates children's energy being used in wrong ways, ways that don't lead to life, right? To the imprisonment of people who have not committed crimes that are harmful toward others. Even when we look in the Old Testament, the punishments went along with the crimes that were perpetrated upon people. Okay? So the fact that we have these commercial crimes where people are in hell, that's what the definition of these debtors' prisons are, is that is hell. It's not somewhere where your soul burns forever. The soul cannot burn forever. The soul is the interaction between your emotions and your body, right? That's how people have soul ties to things that are not true because they accept it as truth and their body patterns get used to it. It's like the opposite of trauma, right? It feels good, it's an addiction, and you're used to it, and you've created a construct in your mind that seems right, but that doesn't mean that it is right. And so then that's how we have such deep soul ties to things that actually harm us and that actually show no regard for our fellow mankind. How is it that we can sit and watch um, people be even in guardianship situations? I will mention Wendy over and over until she is free, and I do know that she will be free. This, how do I know this? Well, someone could easily call it a belief, but and that'll be fine. But I know that as a people here at North America, amongst us, we have it in us to free her. Now, I can say I know what needs to be done. Part of it, I have to be in my right status, or whoever does this has to be in their right status. We have to tell the truth in order to do that. What she's going through is symbolic of what many other people are going through. And then we sit by and watch it happen. And this is solved with our minds, with our our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. And it doesn't include, in my opinion, any kind of weapon or any kind of destruction of anything. We're moving into an era of peace. We need more peace and more love and more truth. So, justice looks like this: the original indigenous peoples of the various lands, they are the beneficiaries of these trusts that I shouldn't say they are the beneficiaries. There shall be trusts put on the record to ensure that we are the beneficiaries of our own energy. We are the beneficiaries of our own life. Because right now, there are people who have created these trusts knowing that the grantors are the first peoples on the land. See, I have a little bit of different concept of trust than some other people. The creator and the grantor aren't always the same. You have the creator, the grantor, the trustees, the beneficiaries. And you might say settler for grantor. But the 1948 Afro American Development Trusts, the grantors would have been the people who were already on the land. And then the world economy is built on something. So, of course, the way things are going now has to come to an end. But it is a religious belief, not a fact. It is a religious belief that our property or assets would be destroyed. I have to speak to it because I can even see right now how the corporate citizens go around violating people's rights on these community apps. I do not want to be hooked up to AI. I do not want to be trapped. I do not give my consent for toxins to be put in the air, in the water, into people's bodies. I do not give consent to go to medical doctors who are under the control of military processes. And some of this could be corrected by everyone being transparent about what their what they do in their corporate or government role. Let me just give an example, and I say this with the utmost respect, knowing that I'm speaking to people who have a lot of power. I do not underestimate your power and the grace that I have to even be here my own self as someone who sees the military hand in the community and on the people. So, for instance, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, we know that this agency has been in the news within this last year or so, and it has been recommended that it be disbanded. Here is my recommendation on how the FBI can be used in a way that makes sense if we want to have a world to live in. And it is normal to want to live. That's normal. Okay, so there's no shame in wanting to live, but wanting to do so in a way that's harmonious, that is joy, that is peace, that is love. Okay. So when someone calls the FBI to complain on their neighbor or whatever have you, they think someone is a criminal. It cannot be the case that a manager would get a bonus for starting an investigation, which such a policy, which it has been said that exists, this alone, this alone makes the organization illegitimate because there is no way that a manager should be expected to make decisions. They're not biased, right? So, for instance, I've been an investigator before, and many times people call and they'll make up things about their neighbor, say, oh, I think my neighbor is abusing their child because they had some kind of community argument or something like that. So, when this happens, we have to vet out for things, and there cannot be an incentive to find someone else, to find a family to disrupt. For those investigating and making the decision, there cannot be an incentive that goes along with destroying someone's life. Okay? This is something that's very important. And this practice must cease. What I would even say is maybe give an across the board raise to those who are in that position. With that said, making whole, making public, or at least making it known to the people who have been in these programs that are not sustainable, can't afford them. These programs where people are targeted and tortured. And I think that these programs have also been infiltrated by companies that by companies that are testing weapons and different things on people that they would not necessarily get permission from the government to go, but then they have a hidden market, a hidden market of weapons. They have the dark web. They have all sorts of things, twisted things that are used and to control people. And then those at the very top that are not addressing it, they would be guilty of neglect. They would be guilty of neglecting to protect the people. And I'm not saying that they're doing it with the evil heart. They might just be doing it out of the nicety of not knowing. But how would you know unless the people um, have the courage to speak up and let you know, right? So these non-consensual testing programs, they are obsolete. They're not necessary. We have a current system that's not built on proper math. So that is a way that um, the flow of energy could go from doing evil to doing good, right? Letting people know, hey, you've been part of this program, and here's our recommendation on how to get well. Tap into the credit side, tap into the credit side of the funds that are there. We all have estates, we all have minor estates. Professionally, when it comes to social workers or helpers or whatever have you, it could be so that the people are able to tap into the stored value in their minor estates rather than keep making the debt deeper and deeper. Okay? That's how you shift the pendulum. And so those who help shift the pendulum can then receive monies, or I would say some compensation or what have you, right? A percentage of whatever funds are tapped into, whatever funds are accessed, you get a fair percentage of that. See? So we need people. Maybe the way you spend your energy will be different, how you spend it, but there's enough wrong that's being done where it could be shifted and fixed. Let me just speak to something else as a regarding to healthcare. Um, when we learn human development, I'm speaking now to this um, gender reassignment. Gender reassignment. That goes against everything that people are taught when they learn about human growth and development. And a teenager whose mind is not fully developed, it's called adolescence, does not have the skill set and the and ability to let this whole thing play out. So let's think about this. If everybody, if everybody who had an inkling of something, I wonder what it would be like to, I could name a list of things. If everyone came around them and said, yes, that's what you should do, you know, and it's something that doesn't lead to life, then it's not something that they should do. And it's not honest. And there's no reason to decrease the population. These are all religious beliefs, right? Because whatever is happening in the heavens, whatever shift is happening, based on self determination, every man and woman is to be given the ability to decide for themselves. Back to Wendy again. Does it seem like that that kinship unit, that little village that she has of loved ones, does it seem as if that they have the ability to decide? No. And the matter is about the funds they've taken as well, she's probably operating in the public, right? A public attorney. Letitia James, how are you helping her? Because this is not right. And we can compare the policies at New York State to the policies in DC and see. And some of them say, well, that's not for you to speak on, but it is for me to speak on as having made claim to the land, to the Alonges, to commerce at North America as one of the heirs. And that is what justice is. We cannot ignore who people are with their heritage and their lineage and then think that they're being given justice. And then now we tie that right back into the initial statement that I said that was so beautiful that came from the Vatican about acknowledging there cannot be peace without justice. And so on those lands, who are the first in line heir to the lands that are being fought over? And I know they know because I've seen documentaries that clearly say who is from where. And this doesn't mean that those folks don't, the ones who are not first in line there, it doesn't mean that they don't need a place to stay and deserve a peaceful place to live. But however, maybe the taxes go to the ones who are the heirs to the land. So I'm just going to read the Sedekv Act of 1666, not the whole thing, but I'm just going to skip down to section 4. So this is based in estate and trust law. And I know that there have been some interpretations of the law that might deviate a little bit from how it was written. And that's something that each man and woman want to look at as well, to recognize that there are deviations and there are misinterpretations sometimes of what is stated. And I think that goes back to this guardianship piece too. If you just compare the jurisdictions, that would validate what I'm saying. As this would never happen, what's happening to Wendy would never happen at the District of Columbia because they have processes in place to make sure it doesn't happen. Um, Let me read this. If the supposed dead man proved to be alive, then the title is revested action for mean profits with interest. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the original indigenous peoples in the various lands of this world that have been separated from their land through these various trusts that now are not as proving to be as profitable. So, provided always that if any person or persons shall be evicted out of the lands or tenements by virtue of this act, and this is the 1666 of the KV Trust Act, and afterwards, if such a person or persons upon whose life or lives such estate or estates depend shall return again from beyond the seas. See, we're returning from beyond the seas. We're not dead at sea. Or shall proof in any action to be brought for recovery of the same be made appear to be living or to have been living at the time of the eviction, then and from thenceforth the tenant or leasee who was outed out of his same, or their executors or administrators or assignees shall or may response. They shall may repossess and have, hold, and enjoy the said lands or tenements in his or their former estate and for during the lifetime or lives, or so long as the term as the said person or persons shall whose life or life the estates or estates does depend shall be living, and also shall upon action or actions to be brought by him or against the lesser reversioners or tenants in possession or other persons respectively, which since the time of the said eviction receive the profits of the lands or tenements, recover for damages and full profits of the said lands or tenements respectively, with lawful interest and from the time that he or they were outed of the said lands or tenements and kept or held out of the same by the same lessors, reversioners, tenants, or other persons who, after the said eviction, receive the profits from the said lands or tenements, or any of the respective, as well in the case when the said persons or persons whose life or lives such estate or estates did depend or lives or such estates or estate did depend are or shall be dead at the time of the beginning of the said action or actions as if the said persons or persons were then living. So, just the origin of this, let's say someone had property, but they had to be away from their property. Let's say they traveled to another land. Let's say they went off to fight a war or something like that. Then the government or the ruling, whoever the ruling entity was, they would possess the land or possess the estate, and they would care for the state, because if they didn't care for the state, maybe the property would go to ruin or be spoiled in some way. So the thought was, okay, when that person comes back and says, hey, that's my land or my estate, rather, that you've been taken care of, I'm alive and it's mine, then the interest would go back to that person. And they would move from the time, it's like whatever monies were made, if it was leased out or whatever have you, that would go back to the person. So this is the law underneath, uh, this is a state law, and it's governing our economy even now. There's trust law, estate law. And so me, as one of the heirs to North America, and so if you know people who look like me or you're at the adjoining islands, this is something that should be of interest to you too. You have an estate. And so some of the things that are said to make others say, oh, well, you're not inheritable to your estate, is when we hold ideas and concepts that we have been indoctrinated with that separate us from our land, such as that doesn't really matter. I'm heavenly bound, so my land doesn't matter. Well, that perspective isn't really very healthy, because the world is depending on us awakening. A lot of the war, a lot of the pain, a lot of the suffering that other people are going through could be eliminated if we were in our proper position and giving honor to our foremothers and forefathers. Okay? So when we see Nehemiah 10 and 29, and we read that, and it talks about, instead of us doing what is right, instead of us following the law that was written in our DNA, we follow nobles and we follow the law of Moses, which is not in line with the heavens, and we're led astray. So, what I just say to maybe spark some thought from those in high places who are wanting things to be in a sustainable way, and knowing that the things that they do, the actions that they take, they're leaving a legacy. And so, if we're here at this time of crisis, we can use the crisis to change for the good. We don't have to fall into low level feelings of fear. And these low level feelings of fear can then lead into hate. We don't have to be ashamed if we've made mistakes or promoted things that are not true or not accurate. We can be big, we can be courageous, and we can have a heart and courage and walk in a path that is right. Okay, thank you for letting me speak that. And I send vibrations, good energy out. All right. Have an amazing, amazing evening.